I decided that I wanted to tell the whole truth, not part of the truth, the whole truth. And in the whole truth, I call it the heroes and the horrors of 9/11, right? But the whole truth is that 2,977 innocent human beings were murdered by radical Islamist terrorists, and that's the truth. And no one can ever dispute that. That is a fact. And my friends were murdered. Patty Brown, Terry Hatton, Ray Downey, Chris Blackwell. I can go on and on and on, my friends. And a lot of innocent humans who were those good humans, right? They're the people in those buildings, the people on those planes are the people who would have reached down at that escalator and helped someone up because they were good people. And they were murdered by evil Islamist terrorists, every one of them. And I'll take it even further, Charlie. I was just doing numbers this morning on how many people have died post 9/11 from 9/11 illness. And every one of those people who have died in the last 20 years from 9/11 illness were also murdered by Islamist terrorists. Their lives were cut short because of this terrorist attack. So that when you say that, that's the whole truth. You don't just cherry pick and say, oh, Terry and Chris and Patrick and Ray died, because that is not the whole truth.
Yeah, and it's not accurate. You are, like I said, I mean, I can't really emphasize how deeply that changed. And when I share this with people now today that haven't heard that narrative, and I mentioned, how I learned that narrative, the whole truth, as you call it, people pause, they stop for a second, and it really does bring to light what actually happened. And I just, your heart, your courage, your vulnerability to carry that message and to carry the memory is just words. It's powerful. I don't even know. I can't even really do it justice, Tim. I mean, it's a burden and a blessing, that you have the courage to carry. And I think we're all so lucky, because we shouldn't forget, and we can't forget, I know you've been, you were also part of the task force, I think, that went down to Oklahoma as well. I mean, you have firsthand knowledge of what these events do to, innocent people. And so it was the first time I'd heard you say it on the podcast. I knew we were going to get into it because it changed my life. And so as we go through this today, as you hear the rest of Tim's story, remember that narrative and the whole truth, because he tells it probably about as well as anybody I know. And so now this event, people are rushing to the scene, I'm assuming, to try and save that first tower. You guys are assessing the damage that's up there, and then the day just becomes unraveled, right? We've got the second plane that hits, and then we've got, the fire that's burning hot, and people trying to come down. And I can't imagine anybody was even thinking the extent of the catastrophe that was about to occur. Had the building collapsing, really kind of hit you at all? Was that on your radar? Was that on people's radar screens, that we've got to get people out because this building could collapse, or just we've got to get them out because the damage of this fire could get worse?
So the leadership of the fire department, the most experienced chiefs,
yep,
including Chief Ray Downey, who was the chief of Special Operations Command, and the father of the modern rescue company, and the father of the FEMA Urban Search and Rescue program. So they got together and they actually talked about this right in the beginning, and they told the mayor that they can save everybody below the fire for sure. And that we couldn't get enough water up to put out that much fire at such a high place. So it would be very difficult to fight the fire and save people above the fire. But the fire would burn up and it would burn itself out, and the building would not collapse because we've been through many of these fires in high-rise buildings, and we had never experienced a collapse of a high-rise building due to fire. However, there were differences here. The towers were actually designed with the thought or the notion that a plane back in the 70s, whatever the biggest plane was then, if that plane ran into the building, it was built to withstand that impact and that damage and fire. However, 30 whatever years later, the planes are much bigger, they're much more powerful, and they carry much more fuel.
Yeah, good point. The fuel capacity definitely had increased, and those guys had just taken off.
Right. And you know, this was all in their planning. They were not stupid people. And they did some pretty meticulous planning. And so I don't want to speak for them, but for us, we were of the belief that they would not collapse.
And so we're fighting the event. We're getting people out. We're trying to save as many people below the fire. The second plane hits. I mean, and so you've got men and women of the New York Fire Department, the police department, first responders, just responding to save as many people as possible. And then, you know, kind of walk us through those moments when things changed. You know, the second plane hits, the fire's burning, and this collapse occurs. I mean, I can't imagine what it must have been like on that scene.
So I want to talk about a couple of the firefighters before we get to the South Tower. I got down to the bottom of that escalator, and this is important because this is what the firefighters and police officers did that day. I got to the bottom of that escalator in the North Tower, and right in front of me was firefighter Chris Blackwell from Rescue 3 in the Bronx, where I used to work. And we were the Bronx guys, right? We didn't follow the rules like the Manhattan guys did as much. Our gear was all burned up. Our helmets were burned up so much that they sat crooked on our head. We didn't really shave the way we were supposed to all the time. And we may have had a little bit of an attitude. And so that was Chris Blackwell, right? I got to the bottom of the escalator, and Chris is standing right there. And we come right like this, face to face. And Chris always had the unlit stub of a cigar in his mouth, unshaven, helmet's crooked. He's all his gear is burned up.
I see him. I love that.
Yeah. And we always greeted each other. Okay. Chris was also on his time off from being a hero New York fireman. He was a paramedic in Connecticut. So all he did with his life was save people's lives. And he was so good that if we ever got a patient, a victim of a fire or a building collapse or a car crash, especially a child, we would always look for Chris to put that patient in Chris's hands, because we knew in his hands they had the best shot at life. And he was that respected in the special operations community of the New York Fire Department. Everybody knew how special this guy was. And so I come down to the bottom of the escalator. We come face to face. We always greeted each other the same way. He always had the unlit stub of a cigar hanging out of the corner of his mouth to complete the caricature of him. And we came right face to face, and he would do the same thing. He would reach up like this with his hand, take the cigar out of his mouth. We both leaned in, kissed on the lips, and we both went to attention again. He put it back at attention. And we would do that no matter how snotty or smudged or whatever our faces were, it didn't matter. And we did it because we loved each other as brothers, but it was more than that. We had been through so much in our career together that this man was like my blood brother. And we also did it because it freaked all the firemen out, and we thought it was pretty funny. So
Well, you can
it,
hear the fiber of the relationship in the way you describe, and so much about really this episode is about really not just your own overcome story, but to remember, so much about that day and the people and the personalities that were there and that aren't here now, and the role they played in your lives and so many others. And I just, I kind of felt the fibers of that relationship as you were describing, kind of this not just touching kind of greeting, but also the funny part of it to give your guys a rib. I mean, that's just who you guys are. And I love what I love a lot about you, first of all, but what I really love about you is how careful you are in every conversation I've ever had with you to bring up the memory of the specific men and women that aren't in your life anymore and what they meant to you and what they meant to each other. And so, yeah, man, just take this where take this where you're going to take it, because that's exceptional.
thank you. So we did that greeting, and then Chris said to me, Timmy, this is really bad. And for us to say that to each other is significant. I said, I know, Chris, be careful. I love you. And he said, I love you. And Chris turned around and he went in the stairwell and he went up. After he said to me, Timmy, this is really bad. He still did it, Charlie. He still turned around. He still went in that stairwell and he still went up, knowing that there was a very good chance he was not coming back. He still did it.
Yeah, the world, the universe is lost a good one, I guess, is lost a great one for lack of any other way to describe it, because the nature of that human character of him and so many others, that in the face of knowing that, and I just thank you for bringing that to the forefront, which is, I know this is going to be bad, but brother, I'm on my way to do what I do.
Yeah.
Ah.
We took an oath, right? Firefighters, police officers, military, intelligence. We take an oath that we are committing our lives to serve and protect those who are in our community, but many of whom we don't know.
Right.
Right. And in our first day, we take the oath and we swear, right? It's just a matter of if you will be called one day to fulfill that oath. But we've already made that commitment, we've already sworn our commitment to that oath. And on this day, September 11th, 2001, 700 first responders fulfilled their oath.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, they did.
So Chris turns and goes into the stairway. My best friend Terry Hatton calls my name. I go over to Terry and he wraps his arms around me, the Captain Rescue One, and he squeezes me to his chest and he kisses me on the cheek. And in my ear, he says, I love you, brother. I may never see you again. And I blew him off because we had been through so many things together before, and we had always come out. We had cheated death so many times before together, and we always came out.
Yeah, I think that's so amazing, because I think that is, with that kind of experience, you use the term blow them off. I mean, it's kind of disregarded. You fought a lot of fires, you've been in a lot of tragedy, and you guys have walked out and survived. And so, yeah, this seems bad, but you don't expect it to turn from bad to worse, and you sure don't expect that those words are actually going to be fulfilled. I'm sure that's a really difficult thing. And we'll talk about all of the things that you've had to draw on to overcome the loss of so many close friends, men and women, to get where you are today. But yeah, I mean, I get that. It's like, we've said that a few times and we're still here. So this is no different, bro. I mean, go up and do your thing, and I'll see you for a cup of coffee, and we'll rinse off, when this thing's over. I mean, that's kind of what I hear your thinking is.
Yeah, that's right. But it wasn't his thinking.
Yeah.
He knew it. He said those words to me, And after he said those words to me, Charlie, he turned around and he took his men and he went in the stairwell and they went up. And the reason I wanted to point out those two specific cases is because that's what the firefighters of the FDNY, the police officers of the Port Authority Police, the police officers of the New York City Police Department, that's what they all did. They knew it. And they still went in and went up those stairwells to help people they didn't know, to fulfill their oath that is God-given.